Hello and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren and today I am going to be looking at a medieval madness video. This one is why you wouldn't last 24 hours in the Dark Ages. Yeah, and I know I wouldn't. Um, I think that at the very you couldn't even eat anything really. It would like there's the way that we make our food is so different. The way that they did their food, everything is just the air was different. I feel like even just from germs alone, you'd die. You'd pick up something and bring it home and die. Which isn't that kind of what happened with a lot of Egyptologists? Like they were just unearthing so many things that like the pathogens were just like there, and then they opened up the tomb or the mummy or whatever, and now they've got ancient Egypt germs. So I think that's what would happen. Just straight off the bat, you would have medieval germs, and that would kill you. But I think they're probably going to go a little bit more in depth than that. So let's find out.
Many people look at the Middle Ages through romantic eyes. They think about armoured knights on lumbering steeds, beautiful damsels in pointy hats, dragons, chivalry, and courtly love. Nothing could be further from
chimera,
the truth.
wasn't it?
Dragons.
Because it's got the little like the face at the end. I think that's a chimera, not a dragon. I don't. What do I know? Nothing. Nothing is the answer.
Chivalry and courtly love. Nothing could be further from the truth. For most people, the Middle Ages were dirty, difficult, and really quite dangerous. Let's find out now why it was unlikely that you could stay alive and prosper, and why you were likely to die quite quickly during that time.
My eyesight's
Welcome
bad.
to Medieval Madness.
That's what I just said in like a recent video I just watched. Like anytime in the past, I probably wouldn't have survived very long because my eyesight is just so horrendous. Like I'm rocking -12s right now. So like I am so blind. Like I would be worthless, especially because I grew up in a more middle class type family, and so at the time that would have just been like a nothing. Like I wouldn't have even been able to be married off into anything because I would have been boned. Oh, medieval art is so fun, isn't it?
Communication, or the lack of it. Let's just suppose you suddenly arrived in medieval England, that there was some sort of time slip and now you were stranded in the middle of the 14th century.
Oh, good.
The first thing you would realize is that you wouldn't
Get outta here,
understand a
Lips.
damn thing anybody was saying. The ordinary people spoke Middle English, the posh people spoke French, and the clergy spoke Church Latin. Speaking only modern English, you might be able to understand the odd word, but an intelligible conversation with anybody is impossible at this point.
What if you speak French? But they probably spoke Middle French.
A woman's worth.
Oh, hey, nothing.
So now supposing you had picked up a little bit of the language, but you were unlucky enough to be a woman, then you would know all about hardship. Because of the importance placed on biblical text, medieval women were usually regarded as morally weak, meaning they were oppressed and treated as subservient. In particular, the writings of St. Paul highlighted men's authority over women and their need to stay silent in church and under the control of their husbands.
I wouldn't even
For the
gotten that
peasant
far,
woman,
though.
work was gendered and she was responsible for the household chores. Not only
Oh, yeah.
spinning, brewing, cooking, weaving, and taking care of livestock and children, but also sharing the labor of the farm and fieldwork with the men. Women were expected to marry or become a nun. It is
Yep,
the
I
first
probably would have had to become a nun. Like, that's probably what they would have did to me. They probably would have shipped me off to a nunnery by the time I was like 12, because at that point my vision was already really terrible, and they were like, this girl would not be, like, I would be like blindly stitching. Like, I would be so useless.
first option that awaited the majority of women. Marriage meant pregnancy, and that meant childbirth. There was no modern pain relief or sterile hospital setting.
Nope.
Complications that we now consider to be inconsequential could prove fatal for the medieval mother and child. Having money and status didn't guarantee a safe birth, and a caesarean section was only performed if the mother was dying or already dead. In 1420s Florence, for example, 1 in 5 women
Well,
died
no wonder this cesarean section's not going well. They're doing it from behind her.
during labor. Death during childbirth was so prevalent that women were urged to write out a last will and testament long before giving birth, which kind of takes the shine off what should have been a joyous event.
And yet, so many of them had so many babies.
Early life, early death. Today, we consider the death of a child to be rare or unexpected, but if you were born in the Middle Ages, you would be lucky to make it even past your 5th birthday, as the child mortality rate was so high, and 1/3 of children died before that age in medieval England. And the dangers would start whilst you were still in the womb. Unaware of the risks of alcohol fetal syndrome, medieval women would have been blissfully knocking back huge quantities of ale or wine, or both throughout their pregnancies. And don't get me started on their nutrition.
Drinking the water was bad, right? Like, that was like, because they didn't know about that either. So, like, the water had all sorts of bacteria in it, especially if it was also used for washing and stuff. So, like, people like, I mean, better to drink the wine, right?
The death of a child is one of the most awful tragedies that anyone can imagine. In medieval Europe, the mortality rate was thought to lie somewhere between 20 to 30% dying under the age of 7, depending on the year. That's children dying from incidents during birth, accidents, or because of war or famine and disease. Deadly illnesses included whooping cough, measles, influenza, and stomach infections, sicknesses that can easily be treated today.
Good thing we have vaccines for those now.
And the grief was the same for parents living thousands of miles away. In medieval Japan, 48% of the population died as children.
Whoa!
48% is practically
crazy.
1 in every 2 children dying.
48% is nuts.
Who are you calling a peasant?
Me.
The problem with living in the Middle Ages was that 85% of the population were serfs. So you would have been more likely to be part of that group than not. Tied to the lord and his land, not only would you have to grow food to sustain yourself and your family, but you would also have to make sure that there was enough to pay the lord his due too.
Yeah.
You couldn't leave the land without your lord's permission or even get married. You may as well have been a slave. You would have been always reliant on the weather. Too much rain or not enough could be a catastrophe and cause the failure of crops, which led to malnutrition and, in the worst cases, starvation.
Like, I don't know what my dad's family did all forever, but my mom's family was farmers forever. Forever and ever and ever. They were farmers. And then, like, I mean, then they showed up in America in, like, the 1700s and were farmers again. So, like, I don't know. Like, they... Just farmers always. Farmers forever. So I would have been a peasant/serf for sure.
Malnutrition meant a weakened immune system, and that led to an upturn in diseases like dysentery, typhus, and smallpox. Food, when it was available, consisted of coarse bread made with barley, oats, rye, or millet, and a thin stew known as pottage. Medieval Europe was teeming with wild game like rabbit, hare, deer, and boar, but these were for the nobility to hunt, not for the lower classes, and the penalty for poaching was usually pretty harsh. Clothing wasn't the comfiest, being made from itchy wool. Houses weren't exactly palatial either. Most had just 1 room or 2 rooms with no chimney and perhaps 1 or 2 small windows. They were dark, smoky, smelly, and unsanitary because they were often shared with animals, especially in the winter when conditions outdoors were harsh. With no central heating, lighting...
I feel like I heard, like, in the Middle Ages, like, people just would just go to the bathroom kind of wherever they were sometimes. Like, there were chamber pots and stuff, but not everyone had a chance to use one. I don't remember exactly where I learned that, but I did learn that at one point.
Or running water, is it any wonder that medieval lives were so short? The average life expectancy for most men in the 140 years between 1330 and 1479 was just 24 years. Women came out better with an average of 33 years, but still not great.
Okay, but coming at the end of my life,
the justice
I would still be
system.
alive though.
Medieval crime and their punishments were really different from today as well, because the church controlled just about every aspect of life, from what you wore to what you could eat and when. So no nipping out to McDonald's in your long pointy shoes on a Sunday morning for your McMuffin breakfast. If you were the victim of a crime, there were no police. You just had to scream loudly to raise a hue and a cry and hope for the best. For serious crimes, death was the punishment, and these didn't just include murder or treason. Forgery, arson, receiving stolen goods, robbery, and burglary were all punishable by hanging. In fact, stealing anything worth over 12 pence, the equivalent of about 3 weeks' wages, meant a trip to the gibbet. Early in the period, trial by ordeal was a thing. Here, the guilt or innocence of the accused was determined by subjecting the suspect to a painful and often deadly experience, such as walking over red-hot coals or plunging your hand into boiling water or oil. If you were innocent, God would perform a miracle and save you.
And you know what? And you know how many times people were innocent? My guess is never. My guess is maybe one time ever somebody knew what they were doing, or they figured something out with like the coals or something, and they were all right. Like they were like, it's just fine. You know? I don't know. I just feel like that just never happened.
Petty crimes like being in debt, gambling, playing football, or using abusive language in the street were also dealt with quite harshly.
Playing football?
With punishments ranging from public humiliation in the stocks or pillory to branding or imprisonment.
Damn.
Many people died in prison because of the unsanitary conditions and lack of decent food. Most crime was linked to theft because of poverty, so there was a lot of it about.
I bet.
War, what it isn't good for. The list of wars throughout the world during the 1,000-year period of the Middle Ages is insane. In total, there were over 370 wars across many empires, with the last one, the Italian War, finishing in 1504. Many were fought to see which incompetent was going to sit on the throne next as king or queen, and others were contested for what were thought to be noble reasons, such as the Crusades. But then, as it is today, it was the common people who were left to pay the ultimate price. As a serf, and because of the European feudal system, if you lived in the kingdom of one of two rich people who wanted to have a go at each other, then you would be obligated to fight. Peasants had to supply military service to their liege lord on a regular basis. Men were only sent away for short periods of time, so if you were lucky enough not to die in the first 40 days, you could return home.
Oh, that's nice.
This was because if everyone went off to war at the same time, then there would be no one to take care of the nobles. No labor meant no crops.
Oh, look at that little guy in the background. He's so little in the little door.
And no money for all the wealthy people to spend on silly wars. The result was a medieval military that was for the most part disorganized, resulting in a lot of dead people.
Useless.
And the noblemen didn't evade death either.
Good.
Around 30% of them died in one skirmish or another. As for the commoners, no one really knows the victim numbers. They were thought to be so insignificant that nobody ever kept a tally.
Yeah.
We can only estimate the casualties from medieval.
This guy's got a spoon in his hat. You see him right here with the little dancing little jig in the front? He's got a little spoon in his hat. I just noticed that just now.
Wars, both soldiers and the innocent bystanders caught up in the conflict.
Oh, and these guys are having fun. They making out in the background. This looks like a party, babe. So like we have this these two guys who are sitting on the bench. Why is she so small? Are they supposed to be children? Anyway, I'm talking specifically about her. Like, why is this? I thought this was a mom and child at first, but they're both but she's super, super tiny. Then you've got this is hard to, this guy, these two are, so bro, they're having a fun little conversation. He's talking about like crypto or something. And this guy is just like, I'm playing my bagpipes to like, not listen to you talk about crypto. These two having a good time. Macking out in the background. It's so hard to like find stuff in here. This guy's like, don't steal my ale, bruh. Who's he reaching out for? We got this lady is like trying to steal a kiss from this guy who does not care, or maybe he's liking it too much. I think he might like it too much. Let's see here. Let's see, those two in the back. Oh my gosh, those two. She's pulling him in for a good time. Yes, she is. And then the guy with the spoon, I can't get all the way over there. I can't talk about him. But yeah, this is a fun picture, actually. There's so much happening in it. What's that guy? Is that guy peeing? This guy? He might be peeing in the background. Anyway, I'm enjoying this picture, actually. So join me next time for analysis of pictures, and we'll go and see if we can't find all of the secret hidden things that are happening in the back.
During the First Crusade at the Siege of Jerusalem, 90,000 people died. In all, during the Crusade years from 1095 until the end of the 13th century, there were between 1 to 3 million deaths.
Damn.
The 100 Years' War, fought between 1337 and 1453, produced between 2 and 3.5 million fatalities. And in Asia, the Mongol invasions and conquests that took place during the 13th and 14th centuries ended with the loss of between 30 and 40 million lives.
Wow.
It really wasn't a good time to be a soldier or a peasant.
I wouldn't have wanted to be anybody in this.
Let's suppose that you happen to be rich during the Middle Ages and able to afford the finer things in life. Would that have made your chances of survival better? You would definitely have eaten better than the peasants with their bread and pottage. For you, the table would be laden with meats such as veal, venison, or peacock in rich cream sauces, followed by sugar desserts and fine wine.
Yum.
You would eat your gourmet food from beautifully glazed plates and drink from delicately decorated cups. The problem was that the glazing was made from lead oxide.
Yay!
Yes, it looked lovely and it was practical for cleaning, making it very popular among those who were privileged enough to be able to afford it. But when salty or acidic food was served on glazed plates or kept in glazed pots, it caused the coating to dissolve and the lead was absorbed into the food. Lead is a poisonous heavy metal which collects in the human body over time. Acute poisoning can attack
Tastes
the
like
nervous
chocolate when
system
you
and
eat it by
cause
itself,
headaches,
though.
abdominal pain, and infertility. Chronic poisoning may lead to seizures, coma, and death. Because children are still growing, the effects on them can be devastating and affect their ability to learn. Medieval
And it can also affect their like ability to like regulate emotions and stuff. Like it can people with like who grew up with like lead in the walls or whatever, like they are more aggressive as adults. They're like they get angrier. Like it's some interesting links between just general like interactions and lead poisoning.
skeletons from cemeteries in more affluent urban areas of Germany and Denmark have shown that people had lead levels well above normal. Lead was also present in stained glass windows,
Oh,
coins,
dang.
and on roof tiles.
Did not notice the
Rainwater
stained
was
glass
often
windows.
collected from roofs for drinking, and this could have been another source of the poisoning.
Probably.
Bread was the main food staple for the medievals. Often the rye used to make bread would
Carbs.
become infected with a fungus called Claviceps purpurea. This caused an
He just
infection
wanted to brag about how fast he could say that. Clavicepaperia?
used to make bread would become infected with a fungus called Claviceps purpurea.
Claviceperia. I can't. Claviceperia.
This caused an infection in humans which was called St. Anthony's fire.
Oh.
There were many outbreaks throughout the Middle Ages
Heard
which
of that.
caused tens of thousands of people to die and millions more to become sick. What we now know as ergot poisoning caused hallucinations, muscle cramps, nausea, insomnia, and sores. In extreme cases, when left untreated, the blood flow to an infected person's hands and feet is restricted, causing burning pains. Gangrene
that why
can
it's called
set in
fire?
and fingers, toes, hands, and feet can turn black and drop off.
Oh.
Some historians believe it is ergot poisoning that is responsible for some of the dancing epidemics that occurred
Yeah, I
between
wondered
the
if
14th and
Lou was gonna
17th
bring that up.
centuries. These epidemics involved groups of people, sometimes thousands at a time, dancing erratically in the streets until they collapsed from exhaustion and/or injury. Thank you for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Please subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and I'll see you next week for another one.
Okay.
Have a great week. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. I mean, once again, what I learn about history is that it's so much worse than I thought it was. And yeah, it's just bad. I never wanted to live in the medieval times either. I know it stinks, and I know I would die. I would die early, probably, in the medieval times. If not, like I would be sent to, like, if I wasn't going to be a serf, and, you know, have to work in the fields, I would die pretty early from that because, again, I cannot see. So that would be bad. I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to, like, function. I'm just like, ugh. And then even if I was a noble, they definitely would have sent me away. Like, I like be wall candy or just go die in a nunnery somewhere. So I really don't want to. It's a pretty castle though. I do like castles. I think castles are pretty cool. But yeah, living like that. I'm just like, I like where we are now. This is good. Technology is fine. Anyway, I like where we're at, like with rights. You know, those are good. Those could be much better, but they are much better than they were. So, ugh. Yeah, I would definitely die very early in the Dark Ages. But if all all was well, and I was a serf, and I didn't die before that, he said women live to like 33, so I would still be okay. I would be an old lady, but I would be okay for now. Anyway. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you would survive the Middle Ages, but I don't think you would. Tell me what I should react to next, and I will see you there. Bye-bye.